Hey, welcome to today's lesson where we're going to talk about what to do when you don't know what your character looks like and how you can go from an idea to an image. So we've talked about how to make character sheets, what kind of outfits we want them to have, how to describe their hair, how to describe their skin tone. But what if you don't know anything? What if you just have a vague idea and you're not sure what they look like? Well, we'll cover some strategies to get over that and to get an image that you can use. So let's begin. So today's goal is to get 3 to 5 images of your character that you can use as reference images. Then we're going to add these images to your character sheet. You should be able to look at the image of your character and say, yes, that's her, or yeah, that's him. And that's all we're trying to do. So how do you create character images? Well, everybody's got a different process. Many people have different processes depending on the story that they're telling. And how to start depends on that. I'm going to cover 4 different approaches, and I'd advise you to try each one at least once. And if you've got an idea for another approach, by all means try it. Let me know about it. I'd love to know about it. But let's continue. So let's start by using the same seed. Pick a number between 0 and 4,294,000,000, whatever that number is. And then you use this while you're building your character. And if you're not really liking the results, you pick another number using -- seed and then that number. And using the same seed will help you refine your prompts. When you get a result you like, you can use multiple or random seeds. And if you want me to pick a seed for you or a number for you, it's -- seed 234. There we go. So what are your options? What's option 1? Let's start with a name. Midjourney is trained on millions of images and associated text. Every name has a slightly different association in the database. A name can help anchor your image in similar results, even if the prompt changes. So let's try, for example, the name Ella. Ella versus Ellie. On the left, we've got images of Ella. On the right, we've got images of Ellie. We're using the same seed. And you can see even with this, there are some differences. Ella, for example, in 3 out of these 4 images, Ella is a blonde, whereas Ellie is a redhead in 3 out of these 4 images. The art style is a little bit different. Ella is a little bit more cool-toned. Ellie is a little bit more warm-toned. Ellie is also a little bit more like a digital painting. That's realistic digital painting, whereas Ella is a little bit more figurative and fantastical. In this image down here, we've got butterflies in her hair. And she has just kind of a different look. I think Ellie is a little bit younger than Ella. She looks like most of these pictures, she looks like she's maybe anywhere from maybe 9 to 12 years old, whereas Ella is maybe around 12 to maybe 14. So that just shows you how just changing a slightly different name can give you different results. You can also add 1 token or element at a time. Remember, a token is a discrete element inside a prompt. So we've got here Ellie, 8 years old on the left, and then Ellie, 8 years old, blonde on the right. So this one has 2 tokens, Ellie and 8 years old. This one has 3, Ellie, 8 years old, and blonde. And you can see we have the same seed, so it's basically the same template. These images on the top right are very similar, but they're a little bit different. When we added blonde, we got more of a kind of painting style, whereas this image on the top right is more like a photograph. And also, Ellie is a redhead. That's what the data set believes anyway. So that probably, adding the blonde, also changed the art style a bit. But yeah, just start with your character's name and then add 1 token at a time and experiment with word orders. Words at the beginning of your prompt generally hold more weight than words at the end, and they will affect the composition more. As you add more tokens, you can change the order of words to get slightly different results. So I'll have an example of that on the next page. We have portrait of Ellie, English student and fashion enthusiast, 8 years old, pale blonde, violet eyes. Now the interesting thing here is violet eyes comes right at the end, and that seems to have affected the image more than it does here, where violet-eyed is in the middle. So by all means, experiment and try things out and experiment with the order of the tokens. until you get an image that where you're like, oh, this is that character. We're like, oh, this is Ellie. This is Ella. This is whoever the character is. And you can add style prompts as well. This is storybook illustration of Ellie, and this is a Polaroid of Ellie. And you can see these are different styles of images. She looks different. The composition is different, even though we use the same seed. All right, here's the second option, is where we have a basic template where it's portrait of name, age, year old, ethnicity, occupation, and hobby. So, or sketch of name, age, year old, blah, blah, blah. Photo of, gouache painting of, illustration of, watercolor of, Polaroid of, anything like that. Fashion photograph of, passport portrait of. The possibilities are endless. And so we've got this one here. Portrait of Ellie, 8-year-old English student and fashion enthusiast. And then this one is a template with a little bit more detail. Portrait of name, skin tone, hair, color of the eyes, age, ethnicity, occupation, and hobby. And then you can get an image like the one on the right. And the same thing. Portrait of, sketch of, illustration of, and you can change the order of the tokens as well. There's another option where you can just start with the story. Start with your character's role in the story that you're telling. So, protagonist of genre story about story plot, set in setting. So this example here is protagonist of middle grade children's story about painting set in dreamland. And in all 4 examples, we have a young boy, maybe 8, 9 years old, with brown or black hair that looks a little bit messy. He's wearing kind of an orange or a grayish t-shirt, and there's some painting motifs as well. He can also be a villain, a sidekick, an deuteragonist. If you want to know what a deuteragonist is, it's a secondary villain. So an antagonist is Voldemort, a deuteragonist is Draco Malfoy. So that's another example. You can also describe the character's role in genre story. Her job is to, and then story function, story is about, and then you add the story plot. So in this example, we've got villain in dark fantasy comic book. Her job is to wear and wield the emerald necklace for dark magic. Story is about a young man's quest to get the emerald necklace out of the dark kingdom and back to his father. Now, if you're watching this, you may have noticed that emerald is misspelled here. If you're listening on the podcast, it's E-M-E-A-R-A-L-D instead of E-M-A-R, or E-M-E-R-A-L-D is the right way to spell it. There we go. But the nice thing about misspellings is sometimes that can give you more interesting results because it's pulling from different data and from a different set of data. So I would say if you make the occasional typo, just leave it in and see what happens. But yes, here we are breaking the rule about no jewelry, and you can kind of see why, because these are all the same generation. They're all from the same seed, but look how different the necklaces look here. Even though the gowns look a bit different, but they're much more similar than the necklaces. So you might, if you've got jewelry, you might want to leave it out in the first generation. Okay, you've also got this template. This is a very involved template, which I actually really like. It's by Nick St. Pierre, or at Nick Floats on Twitter. And Nick is an amazing Midjourney developer, a creative director, whatever you want to call him. He does a really good job. And this is generally the order that he puts information in his prompts. Not all the time, but this is kind of the starting order. And I'll show you this example which is color coded. Don't worry, I will have the information in here in the show notes, and you can copy and paste it. But we've got general style, composition, film type, medium, subject styling, environment, lighting, atmosphere, and mood. So the example we have is an editorial style, medium full front, 35 millimeter film still of a red-headed, green-eyed villainess with enormous green emerald necklace and green gabardine ruched puff sleeve dress, holding an all-white bull terrier, elegant Manhattan penthouse, low-key lighting, deep reds, browns, and ambers, ominous mood. Now, you do not need all of these tokens, all of these different elements in your composition. You can just choose one or two, but this is the full schmear, I suppose you could say. The full, I don't know, the entire picture. So let's see the example. Here we go. Here we've got our red-headed, green-eyed villainess holding a dog that is not a bull terrier, but it is mostly white. And she's got this nice necklace, and it's a ruched, puff-sleeved gabardine gown. She's in an elegant Manhattan penthouse. This is a pretty good start for this, and this is just on the first pass. So yes, it's not exactly what we want yet, but it is pretty good, guys. Remember, this is the prompt we started with, and this is the result. And you can add parentheses and brackets and other punctuation like that to emphasize part of a prompt. So without brackets, you can see this is the image that we had on the previous slide, but you can see that none of these dogs look very bull terrier-like. If you don't know what a bull terrier is, think of the Target dog. The Target chain has a white dog that has a red bullseye over one of its eyes. That's a bull terrier. And then, so we added these brackets around all white bull terrier, and it's still not quite a bull terrier, but 3 out of 4 of these are all white. And there are ways with Photoshop and things like that, you could generate another image of an all white bull terrier and add it. Unfortunately, I don't think you can use Insight Face Swap for dog faces, but you can see that this has made a difference in the composition with the dog, the look of the dog. And putting something earlier in the prompt has more of an effect on the image. So here we have editorial style medium full front film still of a villainess holding an all white bull terrier. She wears enormous green emerald necklace in green gabardine ruche puff sleeve dress. And then we have holding an all-white bull terrier again. If you really want something to show up, put it multiple times. So we've got it more toward the beginning and then another one here. And the result is much better. Now, none of these look quite like a bull terrier. I would say this is the most bull terrier-like of all these images, but it's much closer to what we're looking for. And you can also use image prompts if you're really not getting joy. But just by starting with the Nick Floats template and then adding some of these brackets and then adding the bull terrier twice, we've gotten much closer to the kind of image that we're looking for. So that's the Nick Floats template, and I've got another example here with some options. The red options are the ones that we chose. So for general style, we have 1980s dark fantasy style. Composition is low angle, full body shot. Digital illustration, this is not a film, this is not a photograph. There's no photographic element of it, so we're not going to have the camera. But we've got a subject description, styling and details. She's wearing a white wimple and elaborately beaded purple medieval gown in the Great Throne Room. There's candlelight, smoky atmosphere, ominous mood. And then this creates this prompt of 1980s dark fantasy style, low angle, full body digital illustration of a princess on a throne, wearing a white wimple and elaborately beaded purple medieval gown. In the Great Throne Room, candlelight, smoky atmosphere, ominous feeling. And then we have --AR2:3 because we want this to be a portrait aspect ratio. And this is the result. It's not quite what we're looking for because you can see she's not wearing a wimple. A wimple is it's like a elaborate headscarf. It's if you see some old images of women from the Renaissance or that area, you can see them sometimes. They'll have I don't know if it's technically a wimple, but if you think of that scene from Game of Thrones where poor Cersei is naked and the woman's going behind her with the bell saying, shame, shame, shame. That woman is wearing something that's very wimple-like, even if it's not technically a wimple. So she's not wearing that, but she is wearing a purple gown, and she's in the throne room, and this is definitely 80s dark fantasy style. And that might be why she's not wearing a wimple, because if you think of dark fantasy from the 80s, nobody was wearing wimples. I mean, some of them were barely wearing clothing. But this is just the first pass, and this looks pretty good for a start. It definitely has kind of an ominous mood, which is what we were going through. There's candlelight behind her. So yeah, that's following the Nick St. Pierre template. So let's just recap the 4 ways of generating characters. You can start with a name and then add 1 token at a time. That's the first way. The second way is to start with a simple prompt template, which is portrait of name, age-year-old, ethnicity, occupation, and hobby. The third way is to start with the character's role in the story and just describe what their role is and what the story is about. And then the fourth way is to use Nick St. Pierre's detailed prompt template. So try one of those, try all of those, try at least one before you go on to the next session, and I'll see you in the next video.